Okay, we're live. Welcome back to the Mind Mountain podcast. This is the podcast that delves deep into the mental and emotional side of mountain biking with mountain bikers from all aspects of the sport so that you guys, the listener, can learn tools, tactics, and tips to become the best rider you can be. Today I'm sitting down with my good friend Michael Sousa for the second round on this podcast. I'm super excited to have Mike back. If you haven't listened to the first episode, we recorded that one back in 2023. We talked lots about Mike's history in filmmaking, in mountain biking, and in coaching. And today we're going to continue that conversation. These days, Mike is working in Whistler, where he's got over 20 years of experience riding the steep and deep technical trails. He's working for Whistler Mountain Bike Park, Strand Training, and also more recently has become a coach at the Whistler Mountain Airbag, where he teaches everything from whips to backflips. Super excited to get into today's chat. We're going to talk a little bit about some upcoming projects we're going to be collaborating on this season, as well as dive deep into some of our insights from coaching, learning, and talking all about the mental side of mountain biking. Mike, great to have you back on, man.
Dude, stoked to be here, yeah. It's Sousa, by the way, but but I've heard them all, it's fun.
I've got it wrong all this time.
No, it's I hear Sousa, salsa. I love it.
Well,
it's just all the things. Yeah, no, it's cool, man. Right on. No, glad to be here, stoked.
Like I said there, we've obviously done a podcast before where we delve deep into kind of like your history getting into bikes. But just for those people that haven't listened to that one, I'd love for you to give us the quick version. Who are you? When did bikes first come into your life? And what are you spending your time doing now?
Yeah, I guess the quick version is like typical Whistler story. You come to Whistler for like that ski season or whatever, and then you never leave. I came for snowboarding from Toronto, and then kind of got into mountain biking after that. Did a tiny bit in Toronto, but not much. It was big city stuff, so not really much riding there. Got into it here. Knew that the scene was good before I had my first summer here, and then was reminded of that once I tried it with an old rental bike kind of thing. And then just like, again, typical story, just like went through the paces and kind of upgraded the bikes, upgraded the adventures, traveled a little bit and just locked it in. It was like, okay, mountain biking's rad, this is for me. And the coaching thing started.
What year was that when you first went back?
When I first started biking here in Whistler, was 2008.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and then I started coaching in 2015. So 10 years, yeah. 10 years coaching, almost 20 riding, maybe 18 riding.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So kind of getting into it from there. What first inspired you to go from just biking for fun and actually make it a living, become a coach?
It's kind of one of those things that like you hear all the time where it kind of happened by accident. It genuinely was that. I became the guy in like the friend circle or the coffee shop that I was working at the time or wherever in Whistler. It's like, oh, you're here for a season, whatever, and you're thinking about trying biking or whatever. You should go with Mike. Like Mike's the guy. Like, because I had just enjoyed showing it to people, and it was like people to ride with. Like I was kind of like, I just want more friends to be out here with me and have fun with this, because I'm loving this, and I'm sure they would love it too. So then I just kind of naturally became someone who was doing all the things that like a bike instructor or guide or coach or whatever would do, not realizing that I would do it. And then enough people were like, dude, you're awesome at this. Why aren't you doing this as your job? What are you doing like working at this warehouse or this coffee shop or whatever it was? Like, this is what you should be doing. And eventually I just said, okay, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I love that story. And do you remember, like looking back on it, what was it you loved the most about getting new people out on mountain bikes, aside from creating a few new friends for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was the like early thing that I liked was like, okay, more people to ride with and stuff. But as I did it more and like actually as a job, after like going through the certs and stuff and learning like the techniques on how to coach people and all that stuff, I genuinely took like so much reward out of being there, like helping someone along their hurdles or whatever. Like anyone in like a teaching environment as the teacher or the instructor, it's pretty rad to like feel that through them and have played a role in their like changing their mind about wherever their limit was, be it like just putting a leg over a bike or doing your first backflip. Like I've seen a lot of that now, and I still remember from the early days the satisfaction that came at the end of your workday where you're like really changed someone's riding. They're like pumped. You're like, oh man, like I'm so stoked. I still think about some people like long after I've coached them for years. I'm like, I wonder what they're doing now, or like I wonder if they still ride or if they remember that, because I do, and it's so rad. I love it. Yeah.
So cool, man. I love hearing your story. And yeah, I can draw so many parallels. I think for me, sometimes it strikes me, it's often like the simplest thing that you'll teach someone will have like the biggest impact, or will be like the light bulb moment that they remember the most.
Absolutely.
It's super rewarding getting to be part of that journey.
Yeah, I love it. It's so rad. People constantly hit me up like years later with a quick message, or like in response to some sort of post that's completely not related to what they, it just like kind of like, I guess, puts me on their radar in a moment where they just remember something. They're like, hey, by the way, that thing that you mentioned with this, like rocks or whatever, or jumps, like 5 years ago or 8 years ago, I still use that every day. And my favorite part is like when people say that and they're like, and I tell my friends that, and I'm like teaching them now too. Like that's even better. Like they're not coaches or anything, but you're kind of like starting to get this like ripple effect that you didn't even intend to. Is so rad. Like it's going beyond to where they're not even on a lesson with me. They're riding with someone who has been, and it just kind of, you know, travels along that way.
Yeah, that's powerful, isn't it? When it's not only like the first person connection, it's their friend and then their kid. And then
yeah. It's sweet. It's so cool.
Really cool, man. Well, I'm super excited to dive a little bit deeper into some of your insights around the mental side of mountain biking from both a coaching perspective and also a self-development perspective of yourself. And I think our biggest challenge, we were chatting about this before the podcast, but our biggest challenge today is keeping this episode under 4 or 5 hours because we've got so much we want to talk on, and we're both so fired up about the psychological side of mountain biking. So I think in order just to tick one box and talk about one thing at least that we're hoping to chat about today, I wanted to announce a project that we've been kind of like spitballing back and forth for the last couple of seasons. And admittedly, I think in me not putting it out there, I haven't had the self-discipline to actually make it happen and get it in the schedule. So this is it. We're going to announce it now and make it happen this season. And basically the essence of it is we've got this working name, Facing Fear, which maybe will change as we go through this process here today. But the whole idea, or my idea to start with, was to film a YouTube mini-series where we break down the process of one of us facing a fear of our own, learning a new skill on the bike, something that feels really scary and almost feels like an insurmountable goal, breaking it down into tiny little chunks that we feel comfortable with, and then kind of talking about the mental and emotional challenges that we face along the way. So this first one here, Mike has been kind enough to agree to teach me how to do a backflip. I've never done a backflip on a trampoline, into a pool, anything, so I consider it kind of starting from ground zero. Quite scared. I'm quite nervous, but also I've been mulling over this idea for long enough now that I'm a little bit excited as well. And the couple of chats we've had together have kind of made me feel more comfortable and trust that this is actually an achievable goal for me. So really what I'd love to do here is get your insights on like, well, where are we going to start, Mike?
Yeah, well, I think because you and I have only ridden one time together, even though we've chatted a lot together, I think it's just like a little bit of time on the bike for sure will kind of fill in a few gaps of like what's your style of riding, where your strengths are, and also like how you think about riding. That's going to be like the baseline, which we're kind of learning every time we hang out. But then from there, it's just trying to like, for most people, it's the feeling, especially if you haven't been upside down with other sports, it's the feeling of like that once you get past that kind of 90 and you get committed to the full rotation or even the half rotation really, because the part that scares people is being fully upside down. So that if you think about the full like 360 degrees, once you get kind of to the 90 is where you see people either commit to more rotation or bail out. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that they go all the way around. You can still commit at the 90 and finish at 180 and land. Hopefully you're on an airbag or foam pit or some sort of controlled environment. But in any case, most people tend to like make that call right there. And I'm interested to see how that looks when we kind of get things started and sort of talk about the process of like what you're thinking through as a coach mindset. Because I've taught a lot of people how to flip, but never a coach really. Okay. So this will be really great.
Perhaps I'll be overthinking it.
Maybe, yeah, and that'll be part of it because that's people too, right? I think this is a great case study where like you've not flipped anything, you're interested, you right away mention like you're a little nervous and scared. Like that's great because like it's precisely what we all face in that. Yeah, it's great. I'm excited.
And that's really cool just hearing your first thoughts on like what are we going to do first, as in like we'll spend some more time riding together so that you can do a bit more of a thorough assessment of where I'm starting from.
Mm-hmm.
What would that look like? Are we going to be riding dirt jumps? Are we going to just be hitting the trails together?
Yeah, for like with that particular goal in mind, I think the most valuable riding we could do is jumps. And the thing that's like the most common mistake that people make in any kind of aerial, I guess, or like maneuver in the air, is that the foundation of it, the jumping technique, can be better defined before starting to move into tricks. And it's just like, we're all guilty of it. Like I did it too, because you get excited when you're into that jumping where you want to even, we can talk about just even something as simple as like a little tweak or something. You want to be playful in the air. You don't want to like sit there and like do jump drills all the time. It's not as exciting, or like, it's part of like what feels like maybe a little bit more working on your riding rather than just playing with your riding. But putting in that early work to really perfect the pop and the driving the legs through the transition and just creating a really strong, almost automatic jump foundations is just going to allow you the reward of like having more free time, more experimenting that weightlessness that you require for any kind of trick, especially a backflip. It gives you more control once your tires leave the ground or the ramp to make changes or like be in control of it, really. Like, yeah.
I love what you're saying there. And the light bulbs are going off in my head because I'm like, it's like the foundations of like we learn to get into the air well first before we learn to do anything cool in the air.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And another point you kind of touched on there is like assessing how I'm actually like thinking about my riding. When you're doing this, just in like with anyone you're working with, what are some of the things you're looking for?
It really, one of the things I'm looking for the most is trying to like identify. I like to think of it as there's kind of like, well, there's a lot of type of learners, but two categories I like to put it in is, are you the type of rider that when something goes wrong, or let's say not quite wrong, it hasn't happened yet, it's like in the moment, unplanned, whether it's a break of traction or you go to press off the jump and you didn't get quite the like drive through the ramp that you thought, something unexpected happens. What is your instant in that moment reaction, both mentally and like physically? What does your body do? Do you freeze up? Is there real concern? You're kind of like that kind of person, or is it going to be more, you might be the kind of person like, and you sort of like, we're talking split seconds here, but you take like that extra little split second where you're like, oh, okay, like you kind of read it a little bit more before reacting to it. And it's the latter kind of people that tend to have a sharper learning curve and more of an understanding of it. And I'm trying to learn great strategies or better ways to bring the former into the latter. So the kind of person that does kind of like react more early, or like maybe panic in the moment that something doesn't go expected. They planned, they came in with this idea. Oh, it's not that. In that moment, do you freeze up? Because we want to take those people and make it so that this is our plan, this is what might happen, and we're okay with that might happen. And we have a plan for that too. If you can come off the ramp or down the roll in when you start like with that conviction and calm of like, okay, there it is. That's what I didn't want to happen, but here's what I'm doing about it. And we're talking, once again, like split seconds. It almost becomes, so trying to like learn which one you are, and then if you are the former, it doesn't mean we can't do it. It means how we're going to do it is going to be like, let's kind of mold it this way. Because I've taught people in both cases where we can do it.
So if I'm coming into it, my nervous system's jacked, I'm riding in quite a reactive way. With the first step, this is how my brain's kind of processing is like first step, I need to work out how to calm my nervous system a little bit to get back down into more of a relaxed, focused state.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
For
so
sure.
Stuff like yoga, journaling, visualization, talking through the process first would be better than just like getting straight into it.
Absolutely. And like, you can be the kind of person who benefits from, because there's all kinds of different people like taking the time at home the days before or even weeks before to like write out your thoughts, like you say, like journaling, or like think about it. And like, I think that can be really valuable, because when you're in the moment, there can be a lot of pressure and you're kind of like all nervous. And then there's other people where I think that they are not the type to sit down and write things down, or it just doesn't work for them in the same way. So I have had those same kind of conversations on the drop-in. I think a combination of both works well, but you might lean one or the other a little bit more depending on what works for you a little bit.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the conversation piece there. Like I haven't done any riding on this particular goal, but the conversations we've had already have made me feel a whole lot more comfortable about doing this goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think honestly, part of me putting this off for the last couple of seasons, or just like not initiating, actually booking the sessions with you at the airbag and making it happen, was probably fear related.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
now that we've had more conversations, I've had more time to process it. I'm like, yeah, I actually feel ready to go after this goal and do it now.
That's awesome.
So it's been really cool breaking it down with you. I think one of the pieces that really helped the most was last time we caught up, you mentioned to me there's a couple of different ways, obviously, of doing a backflip.
Mm-hmm.
There's some nice flips, there's some not so nice flips. But then there's also, you said, like a safe way of learning to backflip, or a safer way.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the listeners might be interested in hearing about that.
Definitely. And like that's probably the most common thing, because like that's such a trick that's like it's quite a spectacle. Right? It's even for people who don't ride, you know, a backflip is like, whoa, backflip, and you hear like 5-year-olds or whatever like, can you do a backflip, when they're like talking to pros or anyone with a blue, red, and yellow helmet. Right? So I think that when people hear that there's a safe way to backflip, they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, how? Right? And so they're all ears, right? But I think now there is. It wasn't always the case, because now we have things like foam pits, we have airbags, we have like sand kind of step-up jumps, mulch step-up jumps. Like, if you have those available to you or in your riding area or close enough that you can get to them, you certainly can sharpen the curve of progression and make things a lot more approachable along the way. I've seen it happen so much. It's the reason why I've been able to do it myself, both to coach other people to do it, but even to like do my own. I don't think I could ever be one of those people who would flip. I mean, it's tough to say because like we're alive in this generation, but like in the time where there was no airbags and foam pit, I was only just starting to ride. And there was foam pits like by the time I was really riding the bike park and stuff. I actually worked at the Air Dome in Whistler back when we had that on Blackcomb, that indoor foam pit. And if it wasn't for that facility, I wouldn't even attempt it. It's just too scary, right? And so basically what I'm getting at is the safe way to flip is to stagger it with those different riding infrastructure and training things that we can use. I like to use the foam pit first if there's one available. If not, the airbag's a good way to do it as well. And you just kind of got to tweak it a little bit. Like the foam pit, you can land pretty much all wrong. Like everything is with a little bit of an asterisk of, you know, you can still get hurt doing anything. However, the foam pit seems to be the most forgiving when you have no real context of what you're doing, or you're kind of at the very beginning and you're likely to make dramatically incorrect maneuvers and stuff, because it just sort of absorbs everything. So long as you don't let go of the bike, you're going to be mostly okay with a foam pit. With an airbag, it's a little bit more technique you want to be aware of, and even when you do start getting it around, what you learn on the airbag, you need to then modify when you take it to a slope. Because if you're going to do it on a flat airbag, which most people want to do, they don't want to take it to like a lander airbag where you've got like a transition on it. You need to rotate more than what you would actually want to do in reality to dirt or to mulch.
So you kind of start practicing doing a greater rotation than what's actually needed in practice.
Yeah, and one of the most common mistakes people make is they'll leave having perfected it on an airbag or something like that, or even a foam pit, and they're rotating more than what I've made the same mistake.
So wheels are now landing horizontal.
Yeah, and so you come in with that muscle memory, you come into like, let's say your trick jump, your step up, your mulch jump, and now you're landing on the back wheel and looping out. Which isn't the worst thing if it's a soft landing or a mulch or something like that. But if you can come in with already the idea that like, okay, I'm gonna like slow this down because I don't want to go quite as far now that I've got transition.
So that's people's perception that they feel more comfortable doing it on something flat like an airbag or a foam pit. In your experience as a coach, what do you think is actually best? Is it best just to learn onto something sloped like a ramp from the start so that you're getting the correct rotation from the start?
No, I think it is important to go through that process of landing it to a flat bag or a foam pit first. I think there's not many people who would want or attempt to do it for the slope first, because you're still going to have that forward momentum. It's nice, and there's also always that, like, when you're looking at something big and scary or new, it's a lot more comforting to kind of be able to break it up in steps. So by planning for the flat bag or the foam pit, you know that your commitment doesn't need to be completely there. Like you can even get like to where you don't make the full flat and land like face first. You'll be mostly all right. It's designed to absorb that. These are bags that are inspired by like Hollywood stunt bags to take a fall from high up, and they just, you know, absorb that. That's where that came from. So they do their job well. And yeah, I think that like that comfort of like, oh, okay, so like, hang on, I can do half a flip or like 3/4 of a flip. Yeah, not only can you, but you should a little bit. If you have the right instruction to do it, like, it helps for sure. And I think you learn a lot of that. There's a lot of people who, you know, go for the full rotation, and while they might be taking it to dirt earlier in their flip progression, it means that they are maybe haven't spent quite as much time rotating and perfecting the feeling and maybe building that muscle memory to when they do take it to dirt, they can make corrections. Like when they're landing it to dirt, and maybe now they're like, each time they're landing it, they're kind of a little bit lucky, and we haven't really matured the feeling of rotation and how to change it.
I see what you're saying. So yeah, it's actually maybe a harder process, but it makes you a better, more adaptable rider.
Yeah.
Because you're now able to control the rotation and how far you spin around.
It's like a lot of things in riding. Like put in the time, and it feels like drills, and it feels like, you know, you're not really seeing that great big breakthrough for a while. But then when you do, it's something that tends to linger a lot longer. Something that's going to be part of your riding that doesn't just like fade away, or is hard to like grasp. It's like, oh, Tuesday I was doing it, and then Friday I just can't figure it out. It's something that tends to like stay a little more permanent in your riding if you take the time.
Yeah, I love that. And I really like what you were saying there about like breaking it down into as many steps as the learner needs. That's kind of like another big part of my why for one, wanting to do a backflip, but also wanting to make this series. Because I know this is my goal. It's something that I think would be cool for me, and it's something that seems like out there enough for me that I'm like, oh, I'm actually scared. Can I actually do this? I'm not quite sure. But the whole idea for like making this into a series so that you guys can all watch is so that you can really understand the process of breaking down any big goal. And I guess like one of the big points I'm hoping to get across is that it's okay to add as many steps as you feel you need to feel comfortable and to feel excited about that goal, rather than it being, right, Jake, you've got to go backflip to mulch on day one. So I've had friends say that to me, like, oh, you could do this, just go to the Nesta's mulch jump there. And for me, that's just like, like you were saying before, if you didn't have the airbag with foam pit, you probably wouldn't be where you are today. I'm the same. I feel like I'm quite a controlled, cautious learner, and I like to take a lot more time than other people do.
Sure. And I mean, you can like adjust the focus of that lens and really kind of say, you want to say that I'm not the kind of person who's going to be like, hey, let's go to the mulch and learn it right now with the mulch. Like I need those kind of airbags and steps. But, you know, you can also say that, like you mentioned it, that for years you kind of thought about it and you just needed this, like, maybe let's just put ourselves out there and be like, okay, this is the project. And it's scary to like say it. So even that is like a commitment, like okay, here we go. Because while it's a different step in that process, it's still that decision being made that like, okay, we're going to talk about it anymore. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And so I love that.
That's been a cool insight already that people can take out, is like, talk about your goals. Tell your friends, like, hey, I'd like to do that one day. Yeah,
I do that all the time. And like, I was actually thinking about it on the way over here because I recognized it in what you're doing. And if I think about it, and maybe you can relate, I'm sure other people watching can relate, that the things I'm most proud of that I've accomplished, when I kind of set out to do it or like made it real, whether it's by announcing it or like, the things that come to mind is like the video projects that I was doing in the past, where like, for example, the first Dirt Diaries that I got invited to as the like filmmaker, I freaked out and like, I was just like, now what? But I mean, I put all the time in to make that something that could happen and like really wanted it. But then when it happened, or when I got the response saying you're in, I was like, oh no, like, what have I done, right? But definitely the things I think that we're most proud of feel really like, like what have I done kind of feeling at the start. That's a good sign.
Yeah, I guess looking back on that too, I'm sure you're so glad that you did announce that and did make it happen, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Like, I mean, I was both not wanting to get that invite as much as I was until it was over. And then when it was over, I was just like, wow, like, of course, thrilled, right? It's like, that was the dream at the time.
That's just kind of like the two sides of our psyche, isn't it? Like the angel and the devil, and the confidence and the fear when we're riding, and sometimes they're both there on par with each other, and you choose which one you're going to listen to.
For sure, yeah, and I think they depend on each other to make it complete, really. Like, if you think about, I mean, not to get too like uh, new age with it, but the reality I think is that you cannot have the feeling, that euphoria that we're all seeking, that adrenaline. It's like incomplete if there wasn't a fraction of that pie that was like doubt or concern or fear, like those kind of things that tend to get categorized as things that hold us back. If we can harness that energy and recognize them in the right way, they actually drive the confidence, the progression, the like gusto, the conviction.
Yeah, I love that. Like you say, it probably wouldn't be exciting if there was no fear or nothing to work through.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of going mountain biking? There's nothing to work on.
Yeah, you'd just be, I think it'd just be like
just be
dull.
flat
Yeah,
line.
yeah, yeah, and everything would be perfect all the time. It's just like,
Yeah.
no, it's
That's
not
a
how it
really
works.
cool reframe to almost think about fear and some of those challenges and the uncomfortable moments we face out there as being like, cool, this is a good part of the process, and this is like a part I need to go through in order to feel, like you say, the adrenaline, the excitement, all of the good things on the other side of that challenge.
Yeah, I think talking about it, whether it be like off the trail or on the trail, like in the moment, and with someone that you trust, and trying to like be very objective and remove yourself from the process as much as you can, like those are the kind of things that you really start to like make sense of it all. And I think it provokes calm in that process, whatever your goal happens to be.
I really like that point of like remove yourself from the process.
Mm-hmm.
I find so often, yeah, in my own writing and then with the clients I'm working with, when we get caught up in our own like challenges and like you're in this shit, it's really hard to see outside of that.
Yeah.
Whereas quite often I'll tell people to, okay, if you can't see yourself doing this feature, doing this rock roll or whatever it is we're trying to do today, how about you visualize Mike doing it? What would Mike look like when he's riding? What would your favorite pro rider look like when they're riding this? How would they be moving their body? Where can you see that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, now can we switch back and see ourselves doing it, but from a bird's eye view? And
I love
now
that.
can we get back into our body? And if we can't, that's okay, but at least that's the first step of the process, and we've at least started thinking about where's Mike going to have grip, where's he not going to have grip, how's he moving his body, and we've at least started that, rather than just being stuck in like, I cannot even start to imagine how this works.
Yeah. No, I love that, because like as you're describing that, right away in my head, I was just kind of like, when you remove yourself from the process, I was thinking about what I do for myself and I try to do for clients is that like, don't like think about what you're trying to tell yourself. If you're telling someone next to you, all of a sudden you like have all the answers, and you're just like, you're speaking calmly. You're like, yeah, of course. It's that removing that like emotional attachment to it, that like I could get hurt, my job this, or like all the risks and stuff. It's kind of like just crowding everything to such a degree that you can't even really hear the valuable, whether it's like the coach giving you good instruction or the valuable self-talk that you need. It's too cloudy with these like emotion clouds of like, because it's me. The moment that you're like under the same sort of conversation or like goal for someone that's not you, you can speak with clarity. You have all, and you understand with clarity. And you're like, yeah, oh, of course. It's like, you just relax. So getting better at like removing yourself as the person involved and just like objectively, or like you say, like bird's eye view. Like that's it.
That's really powerful. And it's not, I guess it's not to say that like we don't listen to the fear or we don't listen to what our body's trying to tell us, the emotions, but just taking a step outside can be a powerful way to see what we've got in front of us objectively, see how we would ride that if we want to, and then check back in, are we comfortable taking this risk, accepting this consequence today?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like a deep conversation between like your brain and like your heart a little bit, or you know, for just metaphorically almost, because it's just kind of like, hey, listen, I know, like your heart talking to your brain. Hey, listen, I know this is like, seems all wrong, and thank you. It's like a gratitude. Thank you for the fear and the like worry that you're giving me right now, but you got to trust me. Like, I got to take the wheel now, and this is gonna work. It's like your emotions talking to each other, and that's where I think like world-class athletes get really good at that. They may not be able to like explain it or understand it completely, but they're doing it, and they're doing it regularly. That just kind of like emotions talking to each other and like allowing each other to harness, like use themselves or each other to the best of what they can offer, I guess.
Yeah, so rather than like them being their fear and having that attachment, like fear is something that's there for me to communicate with and decide whether okay, I can hear the alarm going off. Gonna recognize that, check out this situation, and then decide whether I feel safe to continue on or whether I'm gonna listen to that alarm and
For
leave
sure.
for the day.
Absolutely.
There's that choice kind of in the middle there, isn't there?
Yeah, you definitely don't, like, there's definitely some, I mean, it's getting played out now and it's not as common, but there has been misconceptions of like fear less or like remove it entirely. We don't want that. We want to understand how it protects us and how to utilize it to then drive the others forward. So you can kind of like play with it a little bit and not be so hesitant to like face it a little bit. Like,
yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because I think often what happens is the more we try to stop being fearful or stop being anxious or feeling like we lack control, the more we elicit like that control paradox. Like the harder we try to get in control, the more out of control we feel, and the more stress we get, then we feel more out of control. Whereas it's actually in like letting go and being okay with feeling out of control.
yeah,
Or just in knowing, if we put it in a biking context, that I'm going to drop into this roll or this feature, I'm going to do this backflip, and I feel like I'm like 90% clear on what's going to happen, but there's that 10% of uncertainty, and I almost need to be okay with that before I can actually be relaxed enough to perform the move.
absolutely. I call it the like Jesus take the wheel factor.
Yeah.
Like if you're someone who can, like I was saying earlier, like if you can relax in the moment of unexpected, then 9 times out of 10 it's gonna work out. Like the number of times I've landed just because we're talking about flips, like landed a flip perfect to the wheels, and like the first 20% of the rotation I was like, oh, that's not enough. But you're calling it too early. Like it feels that way, especially if it's a new jump. Once you've hit it a few times, it feels like it's not enough, and you just know because you've done it. But like if it's a new jump, and we come off and like that felt way too slow, and it's actually like buttered to the wheels, you're like, oh, if I just relax, like it probably would have worked out. Whereas someone else may have like felt that it's a new jump, and then they eject, right? Now we have a situation where you could potentially end your ride day or hurt yourself. When if you had hung on with that same kind of pop, and it was actually all right.
Right, and it's exactly the same on the trails, isn't it? When we do something for the first time, we can only ever be so clear of exactly how it's going to feel, how the tires are going to grip, and how it's going to go. And that the rest of it comes down to trust, doesn't it? Trusting ourselves, our skill set, our bike, that we've done enough work and that we've got a good enough reaction to be able to deal with things if they don't go exactly to plan.
Absolutely, yeah. So much of it is mindset, but then it's also like I feel that you get to a point in like that certain number of hours physically where, you know, we call it muscle memory quite often, but your body is convinced of what your, you know, brain knows. So you're like, oh, I know how to do this, whatever. But your body almost like won't let you relax in the same way that your mind wants to until it has felt enough mileage of like, okay, you've successfully performed this. If there was like an odometer of success on your body, you're like, all right, you got 100,000 miles of success.
Yeah.
I'm gonna completely relax and like outsource all concern to brain now. And brain's cool. Brain's like, yeah, sweet as. Like, because your body, no matter how, I think if it's early in whatever it is you're doing new, no matter how like, yes, I got this. If it's new, it's like, you kind of don't. Like your body's not going to let you. You just got to, that's where practice makes better, right? It's always going to do that.
Such an interesting point, and it's something we both, I'm sure, see all the time is people come into it saying like, I've done similar things before. I know how to do a roll down now, or I know how to do the jumps on A-line. For some reason, in whatever certain situation it is that causes a little bit of pressure or something unknown for them, maybe it's a new similar trail, a new feature, new people they're riding with, whatever, for some reason they're not able to do it. And it can be really frustrating for them. And I think so often is what's missing is that mileage, like you're saying there. Not only understanding how to do it on an intellectual level, but having that deep-seated training, that repetition, and having your mind and your body, your nervous system actually believe that, yeah, you can do it, and you can do it consistently under a range of different conditions.
Yeah, that makes me think of jumping in general, like especially if you're going to start to like move the bike around or take your hands off or something like that with the trick stuff. It's like so many times, and you'll see this all the way up, like even in X Games or something like that, where say you got like a jump pack or A-line or whatever it is you're jumping, and you have several of them, and you're just like straight air, and you're like, as a viewer, you're like, oh, they really blew it, or like, what's going on, like, or they didn't perform what they wanted to. Yeah, but like, or like progress wasn't made, right? But the reality is like, all things have to like align, and those riders are like, they didn't get that perfect little pop, but there's so subtle things that you can't see it like from the trail side or from the screen or whatever you're watching. And all of it contributes to like on that 5th one or 15th one or 50th one, all of a sudden it's like the body mileage has hit the right amount to where the things you're ready to do mentally and you're already like doing like completely apart from physically doing it have been complete, and finally your body hit that mileage that we're just like, all right, and you let it go. It's almost like that's what it feels like. It feels like I was already feeling what it was gonna feel like. I visualized it. I thought I was gonna do it enough times, and my body was just like, okay, and it did it.
I'm ready. Yeah. And that's why all of a sudden we'll go from being like, nope, never do this rock roll, to one day like, wait a minute, I can see how that works. That's not so hard. Let's do it. Yeah. Super interesting, man. I'd love to dive in here and talk a little bit more about some of the insights you have around coaching and just like some common things we're both seeing out there. I know maybe to get the conversation started, we were chatting the other day about the differences we see in students that will say work with us over the course of a season in more of a longer term progression plan versus those that come to us perhaps wanting more of a quick fix or like a one-off, give me the jumping tool, give me the jumping strategy. It's kind of related to what we're talking about there with the mileage.
For sure, yeah. I think that that's something that's becoming more and more common. The way that kids are growing up, maybe with like short attention span kind of driven content and being kind of finding its way into more marketing and social media stuff and whatever, you know, a bunch of things that are kind of like, give me the quick fix now. And there's like a little bit less sort of understanding or respect for the process and like the time. But that for sure is like the typical, okay, like I get all that and like go do the cone drills and like, you know, get a good sleep and mindset, whatever. But like, what can I do like right now? Like, give me the like one thing that's just gonna give me the result. And you're like, did you hear any of that? Like, were you even listening? Like, I know it can be frustrating, but the reality of it is with anything, there's no quick fix really. Like everything contributes to it, and one day you just hit it and you're like, all of that paid off. But the number of times where people are just, that really separates the people who I think stick with it and progress and get to like move through the green circles to blue squares to black diamonds and get to experience mountain biking more complete as a progression journey, as opposed to people who can get stuck and like pigeonhole themselves as like, okay, well, like that's awesome and I can appreciate it, but that'll never be me. That's usually the kind of people who are like, they just can't, they're not willing to go through that work involved. And that's fair enough. Like we're busy or we got other things that we enjoy more that maybe they do want to put more work into, whether it's like career, family, whatever, that's fine. But it is gonna, these are the results that we see. It's based on what are you willing to put in is what you're gonna get back. It sounds cliche, but it's real.
Totally. So yeah, almost like zooming out, putting some smaller chunks, some smaller steps in over a longer term process, rather than trying to like learn the skill and be like, right, my body position's sorted. What am I going to learn next?
Totally.
So like continually improving on all the skill sets.
Yeah, and I think any good coach or even like good student really, like people who have been coached before can recognize that like it can be hard sometimes, especially if you're have a little bit of doubt in the person trying to teach you, or maybe you're like just starting to work with them and you're still expecting them to kind of have to prove themselves a little bit in their coaching. But like there needs to be a little bit of trust of like, this doesn't make sense to me right now, whatever they're telling me, my teacher, my instructor. But you understand that like what I'm saying in this moment needs to like be paired with your mileage. It's not going to make sense today, but like come back to this point I'm making now in a week after you've done drills, in 2 weeks, in a month, at the end of the season. And that advice or like, you know, coaching chats will develop into a new understanding once you've been through the route of the trials, right? It's like, oh, that's what he meant. Oh, I get it now. Like,
totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it really speaks to me, and like we've got, I guess, intellectual knowledge, which is like we can tell someone how to do something. And it even kind of sits in that space, even just in one lesson when they've tried it a couple of times, and they kind of start to feel it. But then it really becomes embodied knowledge, doesn't it? Once they've actually done the mileage, and then they refer back to that information and really start to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm curious, what What are some of the biggest things that students come to you with about like, hey Mike, I'd like to get some coaching around X? What are some of the things you see most often?
Probably rather unexcitingly, actually. It's just like people come in quite often with quite a vague, there's like, I just want to be all around better. And I'm like, okay. And that's the initial, communication or like question about it is like, how do I get better? And then eventually, like in the first couple of days, we sort of like target something in particular, and it's usually like foundation based, and we kind of do some drills and things get better. But I think maybe if people are specific, it's like they want to be more playful, or like instead of just getting down the mountain or like surviving, they want to be kind of more involved with the process or feel as though they can just have more fun with it. I think most people who have been riding for a while but then still seeking instruction, or at least the ones that I'm seeing lately, have been looking for more, where they're like, I can ride, I'm getting down the trail, but when I look at the friends that I'm riding with or other people riding that same trail, they seem to be a lot more kind of like playful or moving around a little bit, to where they're not so much concerned about staying on the bike, they're just having fun. Whereas I'm kind of like, phew, at every stop. Like, we all know those people, right? And it's like, it makes sense, yeah.
I guess that's cliche, but what's kind of coming to me is going from like survival to thriving. Whereas it's like you're surviving when you're just hanging on, trying to stay on the bike, versus that picture you're painting there where they want to get to is like feeling playful, feeling relaxed, having fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. It's such good goals, isn't it? And it's really cool when you get riders like this that have been riding for a long time and they've perhaps had some coaching before or just been riding for a long time, but they're still able to say, I'm still open to learning new things and trying things different in order to get to that.
Yeah, I have a lot of like, I try to, when I notice that, to make a comment on that too. Like just even thanking people for signing up, especially when they're a little bit older, like adults and stuff. Kids, like maybe not so much, it's a bit of a mature conversation, but like just recognizing like, thank you for taking the time and trusting me with, to give you another shot at this. Quite often, especially if they've been riding for a long time and they're seeking instruction, it's like maybe they've had an off, or maybe they've just been off the bike for a while and they like would really love to come back. It takes, and not only a financial investment, it's not exactly affordable for everybody. It takes that like time investment. It takes that kind of drive investment to want it enough. And I appreciate that. I can admire that, because it's so much easier to just be like, well, that won't be me, or like those days are behind me, and then like, thank you for giving it another shot. And I'd like to change your mind about that. Let's do that.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love that approach. I do think it takes courage, doesn't it, as an adult, to be, especially if we're finding ourselves kind of like stuck on, say, like the black diamond level of riding, and like we're riding some hard trails, we're taking some good risks, but we find ourselves riding the same trails over and over again, kind of performing the same habits. To go from there back into the learning zone and then look to push your riding wherever you want to push it, that it does take courage to face that and to potentially seek out someone that can help you do that in a safe way, so that it's not just like harder trail, harder trail, harder trail.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like anyone who's been through some good coaching, or like certified coaches, know that in the like certification process, they always talk about kind of, especially once you get kind of into the blue and black zone, that moving back in terrain can often help move forward in the skills. It's something that I think a lot of people, if they're just self-taught or riding with friends, may not consider.
Yeah, so why is that for the people listening that are like, okay, I ride black trails, why would I go and ride a green or a blue trail?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like when you're that rider who might be, like you said, like stuck at that black level, it can often be because you're kind of surviving it, right? Or you're just getting down, or basically you're riding near your edge zone or at your edge zone. You're not going to be that level of relaxed or potentially provoke playfulness in that space. So if you go down to your blue, yes, you might be bored of that trail, but how are you riding that trail? Are you riding the main line? Are you riding at like your comfortable speed? Well, why don't you introduce things that feel more difficult on that trail in terms of your speed, or where your line is, like where are you putting your tires, where are you putting pressure, where are you braking, and make some of those changes. And then all of a sudden you're turning a blue into a black difficulty. The terrain is still blue, but how you're riding it is black. You take a few of those, and then now you go back to that black trail. You're looking at it with new eyes now. Like, this is someone who has pushed into the limits of the terrain, what does this new terrain look like now that I've been kind of near the edge of the, now I see things I didn't really see before.
Yeah, really well said. I'm curious here, you've been coaching, you said, for over a decade now.
Yeah, about a decade, yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face in just like being a bike coach for a job?
Well, like I think everyone can relate to like if you work outside in general, but like with our stuff, the days where it's just pouring rain, but like you got to be out there, you know, and not only do you got to be out there, but like as the leader or the person running something like that, like a training program or a clinic, if you start to slip a little bit, like, oh, like I woke up late or whatever, like you can't do that. People pay good money and like they put their time in. So like I really remind myself of that on those rough days. I'm like, no, that's not happening, and try to go to bed like early and feel 100%, because the weather is going to want to tap some of that energy, or the trail conditions. And if you can kind of like supplement that with your energy, and you're like, dude, like we're gonna make most of it, like let's work wet weather stuff that you never want to work because you normally would stay home, but you signed up for this. It's too late to back out, and like I'm there with you. Like it would be much nicer to just sit at home with a blanket and some Netflix, but we're not doing that. We're here, yeah. and we should be stoked on that, because it's the kind of stuff that we don't want to do normally. But then at the end of the day, you're like, dude, I learned this stuff that I never learned because I never typically ride in this day. So weather for sure is like a challenge.
Get to harness some of that energy when we get out for a ride after this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, today's gonna be one of those days potentially.
Great. Yeah. So weather, and yeah, what else were you gonna mention?
Yeah, other parts of the job that can be difficult. Like these days, it's kind of what we're talking about. It's like what you mentioned, you know, like after 10 years or whatever, like it has become more about trying to like get into the mental side of things. Like I try to like learn about psychology stuff, or like listen to podcasts that are very mind related in other sports, and like we're all kind of doing that a little bit more now, because I think that becomes the more nuanced and harder thing to understand and develop when you're digging into people's personalities and stuff. Once you do it long enough, you recognize that it's sort of what you see with the kids, where when you can turn off all the concern, stress, or whatever, you're gonna rise to your highest potential. They're there to protect you and keep you safe, and like kind of keeps our riding a little bit more sustainable, because you're not likely to get as hurt when you're older and thinking those things, but they also kind of hold you back a little bit. So finding that like marriage between all those different emotions, and yeah, I think the more difficult thing these days is to try and like learn the strategies that can draw people over to start to change their personality or their emotions about riding, or at the very start at least recognize them. Be like present-minded in those emotions, and like visit them. Trying to provoke a teaching module or like a clinic that can do that, I think is where my head's at these days, and that's one of the hardest things to do, I think.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that one. I think you and I are on a similar journey, in that there hasn't been a lot of, say, there's no training course that we can go and take to become a mental trainer for mountain bikers right now. So it's about grabbing strategies and tips and tricks from all sorts of other sports and doing our own study, and then really like testing that out, isn't it, on ourselves, on the riders we're working with, and working out, well, what's actually applicable to mountain biking. Yeah. Because what we're out there doing, it's a lot different than golf or tennis or even like snowboarding or something that's got similarities. It's still a completely different sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say that like there's nothing out there, but we're getting closer. Like what you and I are doing is that, like that we're out there. Yeah. But like, shameless plug.
But even seeing in like what the PMBI is delivering in their newer modules, and there's more and more even just coaching companies out there that to talk about this stuff. So it's fantastic.
Absolutely, and you know, it's because it's necessary, and everyone's seeing the same things. Like people involved in the industry long enough and who've been coaching for a while, we're all doing the same stuff. Like we're seeing the same things, and so we go see people who are interested enough to like bring the industry higher and want to really bring their best, be like an inspiration or a substantial like impact on the industry. We'll go out and like nerd out on this stuff, like you and I, I'm sure do, right? Like it's like I definitely sometimes will sit and watch something like, oh, okay, like how does this apply to my sport? Or like if it's just like a psychology thing, it has nothing to do with sports at all, but it's just like deep into the mind, feet, emotion kind of stuff like that. I'll try to then apply that to what I do. And I think there's enough of us out there doing it to where they're starting to see patterns, they're starting to see some data come back, and we can start to take that to the trails and really see something happen in there. So it'd be cool. I think it's going to happen where we're going to see more courses and things that are a little bit more of like a, once we have enough data to where it's repeatable and like you can rely on it, it's going to be something that, and there's enough of the industry seeing the same sort of patterns, there's going to be like a certification in that potentially someday in the future, and that would be really cool to see.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to see some, like you say, standardization across the board.
Right, yeah, that'd be sweet.
Fantastic. So
It's
I
coming,
guess that's
it's
one of the, the challenges, but also obviously something you're really fired up with in your job, in your profession, is like doing all that study off the bike and develop, or making sure you've got the tools to then pass on to your students, much like, what I'm doing here, exactly the same journey.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, like I'm trying to, now I'm going through the process of looking to be an instructor trainer for that reason. Like I genuinely, after doing it for a while and working with like world-class other instructors and stuff now too, and being in such a world-class destination, you've kind of seen quite a wide spectrum of rider, of coach. You've kind of seen a lot, and so you have a lot to offer the industry. And so I really started looking at it like, I really want to be in a position where I can kind of affect or have an impact on influence on the coaching as a whole.
Talk about that ripple effect as well, right?
Yeah.
Kind of stepping up one more notch.
Yeah, so working on that right now, it'd be cool to just be in a position where you can really pass that on more to a wider audience, really. If you can inspire the people who are then going to be coaches for others and take it everywhere, then that'd be awesome.
Amazing, man. Yeah, I can't wait to see you become an instructor trainer.
Yeah, working on it. Let's see.
What strikes me is like you're doing so much. You're wearing so many different hats. You've got 3 different jobs plus a winter job. You're doing off-bike study. You're becoming an instructor trainer. I'm curious, like, what are some of the things you do off the bike to help manage some of those pressures and just keep everything balanced?
I like the moto weekends and like campfires and stuff. Like close friends of mine know that that's kind of like the long weekend vibe when we kind of get out away from town. Like Whistler's pretty heavy, busy with tourism and stuff, of course, like it's always gonna be. So like weekends and certain weekends, especially like winter ones, because I don't really ski or snowboard that much anymore. We'll like get away for the weekend and just sit by the lake, jam on the harmonica by a fire, maybe do a little mountain bike ride too, but it's different because I'm not at work, I'm not nerding out. Like you just ride with your friends. You're not really talking too much about the riding, just like have fun. So it's like a little bit of that coach stuff is completely turned off. And moto's been really fun. It's similar enough to biking, and it's certainly like they complement each other, but just going for a ride and getting up to some spots and enjoying the view, just backcountry camping, I guess, is kind of one of the things I enjoy the most.
Yeah,
and playing harmonica, learning music, a little bit creative stuff.
And
And now the halftime show. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what about in terms of looking after yourself from a nutrition and a strength standpoint? You're obviously doing so much mileage, in the bike park, pedaling, motos to relax.
Yeah.
What do you kind of do from that standpoint?
To be honest, I'm not the best about going to the gym or really having a solid exercise regimen, because I just do so much riding and being out there anyway. So I guess any kind of fitness is coming from that work. But I'm trying to get a little bit more better about the supplemental stuff to complement that and keep you from injuries, because while yes, you're getting stronger and you're staying fit riding your bike, there's a whole bunch of different exercises and stretching and things that we want to be doing in order to keep yourself well-rounded, strong, and less prone to injury. So I've started stretching a whole lot. This is very recent. I've only just started to get better about this, but
seeing it's on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly, right? Now I'm calling myself out, but no, it definitely has. I've seen the improvement right away. Trying to make it a daily thing, and at the end of the day, because you just want to make it sustainable, you just want to ride your bike as much as possible. So I've certainly elevated the importance of good diet, good sleep, good exercise routine, and for me that just looks like daily stretching or almost everyday stretching. Good sleep has totally become a thing for me now. It's rare the night I'll be awake past 10 or 11. Yeah.
Just wanted to cut you off there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think the sleep's such a huge one to
Mm-hmm.
everything we've been talking about. But we're talking about right at the start about like being in a state where our nervous system is like relaxed yet focused when we're out there riding our bike. I notice a huge difference when I haven't had a good sleep and I'm out there trying to do hard things on my bike or even just trying to give a good coaching session. Do you notice like a tangible difference on the nights that you have a really good sleep and you've gone to bed early or on time versus when you haven't?
For sure, yeah. I think that in high season, when it's middle of summer, kind of crankworks time, and everything's just like crazy, and you're working a lot of hours, I might kind of start to slip into that maybe 7 hour sleep or even 6 hour sleep if you're having like big long days and you're trying to catch up on stuff. But the next days is like you're still able to perform your job, but certainly like that baseline is just compromised a little bit to where I might kind of stumble over my words or not really be relaxed enough to kind of just flow really well. And the same with the riding, really, like it feels kind of a little bit isolated and yeah, just not very flowy and smooth and just like really it's this kind of like, because maybe what it is when I think about it is like not only do you have less sleep, but then for me, I definitely often try to like fix that with like, okay, now big cup of coffee and straight to work. Oh, now I don't have time for like breakfast. So it's like, it's almost like the sleep alone isn't it, but it always brings with it that whole like sequence of events that now happens because of the lack of sleep. So it might be like less sleep plus like a bunch of coffee and like didn't really have time for a real breakfast. And now you're like, whether you're just like riding or at work, yeah, you can do it, but you're certainly like, you're not really coming off in the same way for sure.
Yeah. How do you use that in those moments? How do you use that self-awareness to be like, right, I'm not in my optimal prime state right now. Maybe you're out for a ride with buddies. Like, yeah, how will you adjust?
Well, if it's a day where I'm riding, I might kind of just like take the easier line and maybe not put myself in much of a thing because I'm not like relaxed enough. Not put myself at much of a risk. Or if it's a day I'm working, then I'll probably just try and like drink water more or something like that and like try and think about what I'm saying a little bit and try to relax. Just yeah, but I definitely don't do that as much. Like especially with the work side of things, I tend to notice that like or think more about the person who's signing up. Like I can't show up less than your best because like it just I'm too affected by it now. Like I usually become pretty close to clients, especially after several times. I'm really invested genuinely in like what they're doing. I don't want to let them down. Like that feeling's genuine. So I'm just like not gonna do it. I'm not gonna stay at, or like I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that I arrive at my 100, and then they have their best shot at success.
That's the best answer.
Yeah. No, really, yeah.
No, I love it. We're the same in that. It's like this isn't a summer job for us. It's like we're professionals. We show up on time. We get a good night's sleep, and we deliver the good lessons that people are paying us for. So,
for sure, yeah.
Man, that's great. I love it. And it kind of leads in. We were talking the other day, like you and I both share this. Like a lot of our why or our biggest motivator for that continual improvement and maintenance, of our mountain biking skill set is that like this is part of our job, and we need to be giving good demos, and we need to be able to ride to a certain level. I'd love to hear you speak on your experience there a little bit.
Giving good demos?
Well, no, more so like in your why for progressing and continually like maintaining your riding to a certain level, a certain standard.
Yeah. Well, now at this stage, like I think that question will forever like grow and flow with like where you're at. And when I hear that, it just kind of makes me think of like, okay, if I have to stop and think about that, my why these days is like, I really have a hard time like just doing my own thing and without having at least trying to like impact the industry more from that position. Like now, once you get to like a certain amount of time of doing something and you've invested that much, there's obviously some value in providing that whatever you've learned to the next, people to take those ranks. Like none of us are going to be able to be doing this forever. And I think I'm starting to think more about like, I would feel regret or like, I would feel bad that like I didn't chase maybe some opportunities to pass that on more, whether it's just to like more clients or just like in a position of a trainer or something like that. Or even just stuff like this, like talking about it to the mountain bike community. Like you can just do your own thing and have fun with it, but it doesn't like leave that space. This day and age when it's so easy to connect and stuff like that, I want to talk. We're excited about it. We're passionate about it. We're like kind of nerds about it. And the value that it can bring to the mountain bike community, I think, is really high from people who spend so many hours in this stuff with the coaching and the riding with people in such a world-class place. I think that it's valuable to be out there, and I want to do it. So it's kind of where I'm like, this is my why now. This is all I want to do. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I can hear the passion in your voice. You're taking us through that why, man. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh yeah. Well, we've been chatting for about an hour. We'll start to wind things down. But before we do that, I wanted to give you the option to riff on anything else you were hoping to talk about today. Maybe while you're having a think there, one thing that's still on my agenda that I wanted to talk about was when a client comes to you and they're like, hey, I'm experiencing this thing or this symptom. Maybe I'll use like panic braking for an easy example that we see a lot of. What's your process? Because I know you said you've shifted from like, I'm going to treat that symptom to a slightly, I guess, like expanded process. I'd love to hear you speak on that.
Yeah, I guess like first thing is I'll like try and investigate it more, and I'll like, hey, where do you find, like try to see the patterns. Like where do you find you do this? Is it on rocks and corners or in bumps? And then, maybe go a little deeper as like, are you riding with friends? Are you riding alone? And so it just kind of like paints a little bit of a picture of like, maybe whatever problem you're describing isn't so much that, it's like when you ride chasing this person, all of your stuff goes out the window, like what you know to do well, and now you ride solo and that's gone. Or maybe like you had a crash on a rock, and now every time you're on a rock, those like emotions are kind of like playing with your skill set, what you know how to do and do well. But because it's this like memory hard in there of that crash on a rock, you don't have the panic braking on corners or on this or that. So I kind of try to be like a little more holistic and look like deeper. I'll still take the initial question and be like, hey, this is a problem, but like, is it really the problem, or is it a symptom of a larger problem that's like behind it? And quite often we'll fix that and other things in the process of discovering the deeper rooted problem. It's like we set out to fix this symptom of a deeper rooted problem. We actually fix like 7 of them.
Yeah. I love that, man. And what I'm hearing there is like, no matter what the symptom is, there's usually some kind of interference, whether it's like physical, like I've got a sore ankle, or whether it's mental interference, like I'm thinking about how fast I'm going to be compared to my buddy, or I'm thinking about last time I crashed on this rock roll, or whatever. It's taking us out of the present, and we're not able to actually be task focused and perform the skills we've been training to perform. Mm-hmm. So I love what you're saying there. It sounds like more like, rather than just like, in order to stop panic braking, stop pulling the brakes as hard, you're like transforming the actual person, the rider, so that that's not even a question anymore. Yeah, totally. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Was there any other topics or things you wanted to chat on today's podcast before we leave?
Maybe something I do I guess like, it's just like, again, trying to offer the community something. It's like, if I could speak to myself 10 years ago or whatever, there's 2 things I kind of want to say, or like to that person, like, advice or whatever. And it's like, I want to say it to the rider, and then I want to say it to anyone who's like interested in coaching or like pursuing, like they're both kind of the same thing really, but in a different way. Again, it sounds cliche because like anything real is, but it's true, where don't let like the people around you or the scene, especially these days with like all the stuff that's infiltrating our phones and like there's so much stimuli. I find a lot of people kind of second guessing what they're capable of, whether that's in their riding or like their potential coaching dreams, but really like take the time and like enjoy the process. And even if it's not today that like what your little like plateau that you were seeking is found, know that like it's still a staircase to that plateau, and then there's another plateau, and it really is limitless. I think if you put yourself in those circles and see, especially when you live in places like we do, we're really fortunate to be so deeply immersed in such a mountain bike community here. Just talk to a lot of people, ride with a lot of different people, go out on those rainy days, all the things that will just put you in right smack in the middle of opportunities to learn yourself, opportunities to coach if you're interested in coaching, work with other great coaches, and just keep doing it. Just be there a lot. Even if you feel like you're kind of hitting a bit of a wall with your own riding or your coaching, be there, try new things, like be open-minded and talk to people. Like I've learned so much from like just giving it another shot or checking someone else's opinion, or just kind of like, instead of just succumbing to like, oh, I can't like table like that guy, or I can't chase this person anymore, I can't ride that trail anymore. It's like, it's not over. This is what we're here for. This is why coaching exists. And whether it's like you want to be that coach for someone else or you just want to progress your own riding, it's like you can do it. Like keep at it. Go chase it. Yeah, try something new. Like, yeah.
Thank you for those words.
Yeah. Stoked, man. Stoked.
Man, that's wisdom. If people would like to find you online, follow along with your adventures, or maybe get in touch about some coaching, where can they find you?
Best case is to check me out on Instagram, is the one that I use the most. I don't really use too many others. It's Whistler_MTB_sensei, SENSEI. Or my website, michaelsousa.online. And yeah, let's get out on the trail, let's have some fun. I post a bunch of like media stuff occasionally too. I like to do photography and video stuff once in a while. So if you like that stuff, you can see some of that there too.
Amazing. Yeah, and if you enjoyed this conversation, really recommend scrolling back down and checking out our previous conversation a couple of years ago. I believe it was episode 39 or something like that.
I handlebar mustache. That was,
yes, you did.
That was November. Yeah.
November 2023,
yeah.
Exactly. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you've got any questions for me about anything we chatted about, or any questions you'd like to hear answered on a future podcast, feel free to reach out. You can find me on my email, jake@themindmountain.com. And if you'd like to learn more about mountain biking, about mindset, and access some of our free resources, as well as connecting with a bunch of other people with like-minded, like-skilled personalities, check out our free mountain bike community over on the app called Discord. You can find the invite to that one on my website, themindmountain.com. Cheers everyone, see you on the next one.